Quên biết.
Trip with, where are you going? Tower? 40 minutes. Advisor, Peroni, London Pride, Magnus, Guinness, IP. IP is strong, but some are 4.7, some is 5. And premix can is 1% more than this. The maximum.
I know, I think that right. I'll have a watch.
You see we've left Westminster Pier. This is our first stop. You can see together. We've got Waterloo here for the London Eye. Can't imagine anybody's leaving the boat at this stop. If you are, exit to the front of the boat on the left. It's only a quick stop. We stay here for 2 minutes and then we continue the journey down the river to Tower Bridge and then we go further down to Greenwich.
Done well, thank you.
Once we leave the pier, we will provide you with a safety announcement that if you have any questions at all, make sure you do speak to a member of the crew. You've got the bar open in the middle of the boat, with the toilets down through the boat. In the middle you can see a staircase leads down to the toilets, and if you'd like to smoke, you can smoke on the outer decks.
That was me.
Other than that, again, any questions, speak to a member of the crew.
I might order from New Zealand.
And then we leave here in 2 minutes, and then we go down the river to Canary.
Really? I went to New Zealand, I didn't see Auckland Harbour. Okay?
He got the night from the last two.
Never heard a beer. Oh, very good. Okay, sir.
Interesting. Concentrate. So remember ripping it up.
Gentlemen, you can see we've just left Waterloo here. And, as I mentioned, as we cross the river, we just have to provide you with a brief safety announcement with all of your kind attention. Like every passenger boat, we are fully equipped with all of the up-to-date life-saving equipment. That comes in the form of life rafts and life jackets. Everything is clearly marked around the boat. From the back deck, you can see life rafts towards the back. Life rafts at the front of the boat and whole life jackets, they are stored in compartments. Everything is marked with a green and green sticker. You've got the crew on board which are fully trained. In the unlikely event of any sort of emergency or of any sort of accident along the way, good luck. Sit back, relax, enjoy the cruise. Any questions, speak to a member of the crew. Again, the bar is there at the back, towards the middle of the boat there on the right hand side. Toilets, they're down that spiral staircase. That staircase eventually leads to the toilet. And then if you've got a smoke on board, you have got the outer decks. But other than that, any questions, anything that worries you, make sure you do speak to a member of the uniform. You can see we've left the pier. We're going in the wrong direction at the moment. Eventually, we will start to turn. And the next stop is Tower Pier, and we'll be there in around 25 minutes. The reason we take the boat in the wrong direction, looking in front of you on your right, you get a nice view from here of the Parliament building. So you can see from the river the new palace of Westminster. This is the seat to the British government. So we get the view of the building, and then we'll start to turn, and then we'll make our way to our next stop. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have groups on the boat from all over the world. We've got the group from London, Hammersmith towards the back there. We've got a group from South Korea, the Anyang Asean. We've got a group from Germany. Raise your hand. Raise your hand if you've understood what I've said so far. A few, not too many. Now, I only ask because the company, they don't employ tour guides. What they provide you with is a pre-recorded commentary. So the company, they developed an app. You download the app, and then the commentary, it comes in around 14 different languages. As the crew, we don't like to use the apps. What we prefer to do is a live commentary instead. But, if you'd like me to, I can point out the buildings that we go past. Would that be okay? Just with another show of hands. 6 people. Now I'll speak slowly, I'll point out the buildings, so to avoid having a mystery tour, I will point out the buildings we go past, but bear in mind we are the crew, and I know not everybody's first language is English, but I speak slowly and I'll talk as clear as I can. And then looking off to your right there we can see it now, the new Palace of Westminster. Opened in 1852. Queen Victoria opened the building to celebrate Queen Victoria's Diamond Jubilee. They named the Parliament, they named the furthest tower the Victoria Tower. The Parliament building, you've got two towers. They are named after this country's longest reigning monarchs. The tower closest to us, with the 4 clock faces, is the Elizabeth Tower. So you've got the Victoria Tower furthest away, the clock tower, the Elizabeth Tower. Everybody calls it Big Ben. Big Ben is the name of the bell that strikes the hour. So you don't see Big Ben, you hear it on the hour, every hour throughout the day. The bell that you just heard, they call it a quarter bell or the Westminster chime. So Big Ben only strikes the hour. So the Elizabeth Tower, you have the great clock of Westminster, Big Ben, the hour. Now we've continued to turn the boat and then looking on to your right, you've got the old County Hall for London, built for the Greater London Assembly. This is now the largest Marriott hotel in Europe. Underneath the hotel, you've got attractions, all part of Merlin Entertainment. So you've got Shrek's Adventure. You see that? You've got the London Dungeons, you've got an aquarium, Sea Life London Aquarium, a Paddington Bear Experience, and that's all underneath that Marriott hotel there to get right hand side. You've got the London Eye to your right, stands 452 feet. This is the 4th largest observation wheel in the world. 32 pods, so 32 capsules, which isn't a random number. Each pod represents one of the 32 London boroughs. So each of the pods represents an area of Greater London. The idea when you get to the very top, you see every single one on a good clear day. One of the pods is missing, you can see that? See at the top, one of the pods is missing. A cage is there instead. People often ask why there is a pod missing. Unfortunately, it fell off about 3 weeks ago. Fell into the river and floated down. Full of people as well, but floated down. I did really. One of the pods is missing because I say the London Eye is a massive financial success. They built it for the year 2000, and the plan, it was only supposed to be here for 2 years. It became such a success, 26 years later, still standing here in London. The problem is, it's a little bit outdated. So the pods, one by one over the next 3 years, they are being removed, and they're updating the pods. I think they're fitting them with air conditioning and little computer screens to zoom in on buildings. So that's what they're doing at the moment, a 3-year plan, one pod at a time. They didn't fall off, they're just updating the pods at the moment. This bridge, this is the Charing Cross Railway Bridge. So a railway line runs above the boat here. Either side of the railway bridge, you have walkways. These are the Golden Jubilee footbridges. So 2 walkways built to celebrate Queen Elizabeth's 50th year of the throne. So marking the late Queen's Golden Jubilee. Follow the river along to your left. You can see a tall stone Egyptian obelisk, and this is called Cleopatra's Needle, and it is said to be 3,500 years old. So this is London's oldest monument, older than London itself. Carved in Egypt, the needles carved in pairs, and the twin, it stands in Central Park, New York City. The one in London given as a gift, apparently, from the Egyptian government. A lot of people say we stole it, especially the Egyptians, but I can't believe that to be true. Apparently a gift for Lord Nelson's victories over Napoleon at the Battle of the River Thames. Again on your left, you've got the Savoy Hotel. That building, the green tiled roof, that's the famous Savoy Hotel at the Strand, a hotel you might have heard of before. This bridge, this is the Waterloo Bridge. This bridge was built during the Second World War. When they built this bridge, the men working on it, they were called away to fight. and all of the work it was took over by the women. The ladies built this bridge. This bridge was built by a 90% female workforce, and the ladies done a fantastic job. So well done. Lady, be pleased to know that it's the only bridge ever built on time,
That'd be right.
under budget. So you want something done properly, get the ladies to do it. Famously known as the Ladies' Bridge over the Thames, the Ladies' Bridge. Here on your right, looking across, you can see a concrete building. It's got an electronic sign.
Yeah.
That is the Royal National Theatre. That building voted every year as to be the ugliest building in the world. Nuclear power station. Go in that building, there is 3 theatres, and they are some of the best in the country. The outside of it does let it down, but different on the inside. And then looking along to your right, this all is the South Bank. The South Bank of the river, an area you may have heard of before. They call it today the Performing Arts area for London. So the pathway next to the Thames that runs between the London Eye and Tower Bridge takes you around 1 hour to walk the entire length. But you'll get street performers, you get bars, you get restaurants, you get theatres. Opened up to your right now, you can see a market. They call it Summer by the River at the South Bank. It was here last year, and it was voted the best market in the whole of London. So somewhere you might like to walk from the South Bank area to get to the right. Looking here to your left, the large white ship, this is called the Wellington. This was part of the 15th Navy, permanently on the Thames today. At the back end of the ship, you can see a stone arch. This is Temple Arch or Temple Gate, and this archway marks the boundary line to the capital city. This is where you leave the city of Westminster. The area to your left, this now becomes the capital city of London. The capital city, one of the smallest in the world. The area measures 1 square mile from here to Tower Bridge. They call it the Golden Mile because it's all mainly banks. That's what you're going to see now. We're looking in the area to your left, largely office buildings, mostly banks. So a wealthy area, but a small area, the Golden Mile capital city to your left. Here on your right, you've got the large red brick building. This is the Oxo building. You may know it as the Oxo Tower. If you've ever heard of the Oxo stock cube, that cube made in London, made in a building here on your right hand side. They don't make the stock cube here anymore, they converted the building into apartments. The top floor, there is a restaurant run by Harvey Nichols. It's voted one of the top 5 restaurants in London. So Harvey Nichols restaurant on the other side. Here on your right, looking in front of you, are a tall glass building. This is a new apartment building. The official name of this building is number 1 Magpie. They gave the building a nickname. You might be able to see it looking at it. You might be able to work it out. They call it the Kim Kardashian building. Something to be curved apparently in the back end there. They sold the 4-bedroom penthouse apartment, the top floor. They sold it for 27 million. They are all multi-million pound apartments. I live about halfway up. Red light. This bridge, this is Blackfriars Road Bridge. The second one is a railway bridge. And then you've got the red columns that to your right. These are the remains of a railway bridge that came unsafe, and they took off the top of the bridge. Took off the top of the bridge. A Victorian railway bridge. Steam trains came across. Couldn't take the weight of the train. Looking on your left, you see St Paul's Cathedral. Sir Christopher Wren's masterpiece. The architect, and amongst others, he is buried in the St Paul's, the second largest unsupported cathedral dome in the world. The largest being St Peter's in the Vatican City of Rome. It stands 365 feet, so it's easy to remember. 1 foot was built for every day of the year, and took 35 years to build and finished in 1710. Now looking on your right, it's got the Tate Modern, that's an art gallery, you go free of charge. Know anything about modern art? You know why it's free to visit? And then you've got this bridge, this is the Millennium Foot Bridge. Now I think the school group just called it the Harry Potter Bridge. So you might recognise the bridge here from the film Harry Potter. Destroyed by the Death Eaters in Harry Potter. A well-known bridge now. They call it as well the Wibbly Wobbly Bridge. They opened it and they found out they built the bridge too late. And then the wind picked up and shook the bridge side to side. They had to quickly evacuate, they had to close it, it was re-strengthened. It's safe today, but they still call it the Wibbly Wobbly. Now looking across to your right, you've got a white round building, timber frames and a thatched roof. This is the William Shakespeare's Globe Theatre. This building is a replica to a theatre that stood in the area here, Bankside. This is the third Globe Theatre to stand in this area. The original was built in 1599. The original theatre burned down during a play, during a performance of Henry VIII. During a play, they wanted to use a cannon as a prop. They used a real cannon, but it backfired and it burned the theatre down. It was in 1613. A new one was built, but it was closed by Parliament. That's the third theatre to stand. A replica to the original, they performed William Shakespeare's plays, 2 plays every day, performed traditionally, no stage lighting, no sound effects, no microphones, and actors they dress up in the traditional clothing. Brilliant value for money, you get a standing ticket and it's only £10. Brilliant value for live entertainment. Now looking across to your right, you've got a riverside pub. In the corner of the bridge, the pub is called the Anchor, and it was built in 1615. Parts of this pub here, 400 years old. That pub is where me and my friend drive in the boat. That's where we go after work. Now we have to learn about these buildings when we finish, and we found the best place to research these commentaries is that riverside pub. So we sit there for hours. Don't go home, we sit in that pub. Learn about buildings. We're just passing beneath now Cannon Street, Railway Bridge. Follow the river along to your right. In between the buildings here, you've got a real life pirate ship. Has anybody seen the film Pirates of the Caribbean? Look closely at the ship as we go past. Look very close though. But nothing to do with that film. Brilliant film. That is a working replica to Sir Francis Drake's Golden Hind. The original sailed the world and the replica has been around the world twice. Now that looks like a model, that is a full workmanship. You got this bridge here, this is the world famous London Bridge. Not much to look at, often confused with the next bridge, which is Tower Bridge. This one has got a name carved into the stone. So this is definitely London Bridge. This is the 5th London Bridge in 2,000 years. The Romans built the first one. The first one was wooden and it burned down. The second bridge fell down, so did the third, giving rise to the nursery rhyme. The man was singing there. He's singing it, London Bridge is falling down. The 4th London Bridge was sinking in the mud. And it was sold to an American oil tycoon called Robert McCulloch. An American bought London Bridge for $2 million. They moved it to America and it was rebuilt at Lake Havasu City in the Arizona desert. So Arizona, that is where you find the 4th. People think we make that story up, but that is a true story. Apparently they bought the wrong bridge. Apparently they thought they were buying Tower or London Bridge. On your right, it's got the Shard, Western Europe's tallest building, standing just over 1,000. On the 72nd floor, there's a viewing area. So you can stand about 3/4 of the way up and you do get great view. There is another viewing area on the building on your left. On your left, you can see a building of a curved roof. The top floor is called the Sky Garden. You go to the Sky Garden completely free of charge. So if you want the view, you're going to save yourself a little bit of money, you can go there instead. That is Sky Garden London. The warship to your right, London's very own warship, they call it the HMS Belfast. Built in Belfast at Northern Ireland, launched on St. Patrick's Day, 1938, saw lots of action in the Second World War, and at last fired the guns in anger in the 50s in the Korean War campaign. Very powerful ship years ago, 12 main guns, 6 big guns at the front there, 6 big guns at the back. Each one of these big guns can fire a 100-weight shell up to 14 of land miles. So a very powerful ship years ago. Today, a floating museum. You can see the people on board there, an extension to the Imperial War Museum. Open to the public and you can go on board. Our next stop is to your left. We're going to go past the pier. We're going to turn the boat. And as we do, you're going to get a view of the bridge. So once we start to turn, on your right-hand side is the best place to stand. Now we've got parts of the group, so we're standing on the left. If you'd like a photograph of the bridge, move to the right, and you get a much better view as we turn. We're going to drift sideways towards the bridge. Tower Bridge is unique. A part bascule bridge and a part suspension bridge. The two center parts, they lift, they open like a double-sided drawbridge, and that allows taller boats to pass beneath. If you would like to see Tower Bridge open, of course, you have to be very lucky to be in the right place at the right time. All of the information is on the website. There is a website for the bridge, and on there, they publish the times for whenever the bridge is going to lift up. I had a look on the website, and the bridge does open today, this evening at 6:45. So if you would like to see the bridge open, a tall-masted sailing barge is going to pass through the bridge at 6:45. So there's something you might like to see while you're here. Tower Bridge lifting 6:45. If you're going to get a photograph, the best photo you're going to get is with the double-decker bus in the middle of the bridge. That's about £20. Postcard. Tower Bridge, built in 1894, took 8 years to build. Built in the Gothic style, it was built to blend in with the castle that sits next door. It's an iron and steel bridge. The stonework is there for decoration. It's there so the castle blends it. So the bridge blends in with the Tower of London, which you're going to see as we continue to turn the boat round. The famous fortress, a historic royal palace, dates back to 1078. Been well used over the years, been a royal mint where they made money, a royal observatory, and even a zoo at one time. Most famously used, of course, for torture, for imprisonment and execution. And what you're going to see, if you follow the river along, you're going to see the words written on the river wall. They read, "Entry to the Traitors' Gate." Of course, the archway beneath was open, and this would have been the river entrance for traitors that have passed through. They called it London's very first one-way street. Traitors were sentenced to death. They were put into a boat, rowed down the river from Westminster, and they would have been rowed through the arch. Traitors had their head chopped off with a large bludgeon. So executed here to your right-hand side. They don't do that anymore. That doesn't happen today. And today the castle is home to the King's Crown Jewels. So been many things this time. Today, a tourist attraction. Definitely recommend it if you have got the time. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be making our way now into our next stop, Tower Pier. Now, for your safety, do stay seated now until we are safely alongside the pier, just in case there is a bump as we touch the pier. I know, again, not everybody understands every word, but if you could find a seat, just stay in your seats now in case there is a bump. You might not feel a thing, but also the boat might crash into the pier. So if you expect both, you will be okay. Just find a seat, stay seated until it's safely tied up. Now, this boat does continue the journey to Greenwich. So remember that, stay on the boat for Greenwich Pier. If you are returning to Westminster, if you are going back to Big Ben or the London Eye, you need to change boats at this stop. So only stay on this boat for Greenwich. Returning to Westminster or the London Eye, you need to change boats here. Make sure you take all of your personal belongings with you. Announcements that come over the PA system. There really is no need to worry. Sit back, relax, enjoy the cruise. If you have any questions, make sure you do ask. The bar is open, the toilets, they are down in the middle of the boat. And if you would like to smoke on the boat, you can smoke around the outer limits. But other than that, any questions, see anything that worries you, make sure you do speak to a member of the union. Fitted to the boat, there is a pre-recorded commentary. The company, they provide the app that you download. If you would like a translated commentary, you download it, and then you can get a commentary in around 14 different languages. Again, as the crew, I mentioned we don't like to use the apps, we prefer to do a live commentary instead. So I'll continue to point out new buildings that we go past, and hopefully, and again, I know not everybody's first language is English, so I speak Scottish. There's not as much to point out in this part of the truck. Once you pass through Tower Bridge, you leave the capital city. We leave the city of London behind us, and the areas that we are passing now on the journey, they call it the Docklands part of London. So these areas, and this is where the shipping would have taken place. Which means what you are mostly going to see is riverside apartments. A lot of these buildings, they have been converted from warehouses. They were buildings that stored cargo. On your right, these buildings, this is called the Butler's Point. Today, you can imagine these are multi-million pound apartments. When this was a working river, these buildings they stored tea stored right there. Ships would bring the tea to London, large sailing ships, they would race. They raced from India, China, and the Chesapeake King stored here. The winner of the race would receive the best prize. And in certain parts of the country, certain times the weight of the tea would have been called the weight of gold. It was expensive, and it was restored here. You got the super yachts on your right and the straight up. Looking on your right, looking between the gaps in the building, you see a brick. This is St. Saviour's Dock. It leads up to the top with the Bermondsey, and this is where they built the beautiful Oliver. In the beautiful film Oliver's Twist, on your left, you've got green glass buildings. These are new buildings, they are built to make the plant. Partners here, they are designed to look like soldiers marching down the way. Soldiers. I don't know what the designer was on at the time. Started group, soldiers cap. Square back is the one back in the area on the roof. That's a right bottom or a right. Sure that's soldiers. Following the river along to the left, You've got a Victorian apartment building, it's called the Oliver's Building. Today these are apartments, there is another building, the third and old building. At the bottom of the building there's a pub. Now as we go past, we can see a staircase leading into the river. And at the top there's a pub called the Town of Ramsgate. This pub and the staircase are very famous for pirates. Piracy is a massive problem on the Thames. Pirates will come up the river and they will steal the cargo from the big store. It became such a problem that the punishment for stealing became execution. The pirate would be caught stealing and they would take them to that riverside pub. You get a drink, one last drink, lead the pirate down the staircase, and then around the bend you got the stony foreshore. They called it execution club. They would bring the pirate here, and they would be chained up, and they would be left to drown. So drowning was the punishment. They called it the grace of God. And they say up to 400 pirates would have been executed when they left Thames. One of the most famous pirates to be executed on your left was a Scottish pirate, and his name was Captain. Scottish pirates, they named the pub after him and they were the Captain. Scotsman drowned in a river in 1701. What you got today is police boats. Look to your left, they formed the Thames River Police in 1798. Formed on the river to tackle the thieving of the pirates. Couldn't continue executing the pirates on board. But in 1798 they formed the Thames River Police. One of the oldest uniformed police forces above still running. On your right, it's got the church. This is St. Mary's Church. This area, this is Riverside. Buried in that church, you've got Christopher Jones. He was the captain of the pilgrim ship, the Mayflower. You might have heard of the Mayflower ship before. There's a pub named after it here in Riverside. The flag of the United States is there, it's wound around the pole, and the Union flag is there as well. And on the roof, you've got the replica of the pilgrim ship. In 1620, that famous ship set sail from the area, leaving Riverside, going down the Thames, around the country, picking up the pilgrim farmers, stopping along the way, and eventually going up to what you now know as the United States of America. So that famous journey, that voyage, they believe it started here, believing a lot of the crew to be local to the area. Pilgrims as well can be traced back to areas of Southwark, all in that here, the old pirates. Going into that pub, there's a list of names on the wall, a list of all of the pilgrims and the crew that boarded that ship, their job as well. The United States. On your left coming up, you've got another riverside pub in between the buildings here. This pub is called the Prospect of Whitby, and it is the oldest riverside pub in the tidal part of the Thames. This pub was built in 1515. When they built this pub, it was called the Pelican. This pub became so notorious, it was so famous for crime, they nicknamed it the Devil's Tavern. So you might have heard of it before, not just the Devil's Tavern. Famous for pickpocketing, speed, murder. Ladies of the night, this is the public. Go in there today, nothing has changed. Instead of they called the area of the river as well the Devil's Punch Bowl, an area notorious for pirates. Ships are anchored here, pirates would row ashore, rob the building to get back on the ships and disappear off the sea. You can imagine no CCTV, no security, there was no real way to control the pirates. And the reason they came here, this is where the expensive cargo would have been stored, especially in the area to your left. On your right, you had the tea and the spice. On your left, you had gold and silver. Across the east end,
you'd have had silk, you'd have had ivory, big ivory tusks, you'd have had our garlands and racquet. That was all stored together. So you can imagine how much steaming would have been taking place in the areas here. Looking past the great barges, you've got the sandy coloured buildings with white arched windows. These buildings, they were prisons, they were holding cells for criminals. Convicts, they were held in buildings like this all over the country. They would send criminals away. The prisons were full up, convicts were sent to other areas of the commonwealth. The destination, it would have been America. The Americans gained independence, they first stopped it, they found a new place, and they found Australia. They sent thousands of people from here to Australia to live. That would have been the punishment for crime, packed up and sent to Australia. Another riverside property left this one from the Narrow, that one. And so we've got these celebrity chef Morning Ramsay famously owned this property. There is another pub owned by another famous man. I know I'll mention a few pubs, I'm not going to point out here. Looking on your left, following the river along. First, you're going to see some narrow brown apartment buildings. The last one is a property famous. And this pub was made famous by Charles Dickens. Charles Dickens lived in the attics of the pub. From there wrote novels, Great Expectations, and Our Mutual Friend. So if you've heard of Charles Dickens, well, he lived in the attics of his pub. The Grapes and Limehouse. That pub today is owned by the actor Sir Ian McKellen. So have you ever heard of Gandalf, Lord of the Rings, the famous actor? He famous jokes that riverside. He also lives about 4 doors away. So you see the yellow statue on the balcony. There's another one on the river, on the column standing on the foreshore. So these two statues, they're owned by Sir Ian McKellen. He owns those statues, the apartment, he owns the riverside. Starting from around this big bend, like the bend, you've got Canary, Wharf. This is the working complex. This is the financial district of London. It's a flight Canary Wharf, which means it is very busy during the week, Monday to Friday, but it is very quiet on a weekend. So if you're looking to visit Canary Wharf, go through the evening by the weekend. Put a plank that's Monday to Friday. Very quiet. The tall building, the pyramid on the top and the light flashing, that's the tallest building in the area, the main one, the official name of it, number 1, Canada Square. Everybody calls it Canary Wharf and the Canary Wharf Tower. That is the name of the area, not the building. That building stands 850 feet. Used to be the tallest building in the whole of Europe. Nowhere near the tallest building today, but it's still the main one and this is working. Underneath it, there's a big shopping centre. There's also bars, there's restaurants in the area. It is a nice area to live in. Canary Wharf divides the east end of the Isle of London. The east end of London, you might have heard of before. It's a notorious and famous area today. It runs between Tower Bridge and Canary Wharf. You go further east and you're in East London. But the area to your left is a peninsula and it sits on a horseshoe bed. So looking in front of you is a straight section for the river, it bends to the left. Continues to bend around the area, if you can imagine it, it's a big U shape. The area to your left is an island. This is a man-made island. They split off the land here for their shipping to take place. They split off the land. Through the middle, we got water. Through the middle of the land here, 3 large docks. The West India dock, the Millwall dock, and the East India dock system. That's all here to the left-hand side. When this was a busy working river, these became some of the busiest docks in the world. For the shipping to take place, they connected the 3 docks and they put entrances and exits at the bottom of the bed on either side of the area. Doing that, they say they split off the land and they created an island and they call it today the Isle of London. Now Greenwich sits at the bottom of the bed. We're going to start to go around this big bed in a moment, and as we do, we're going to see the Royal Borough of Greenwich. There's always been a royal residence in Greenwich. And they say royalty would keep dogs in the land on the left-hand side. So there were some hunting dogs apparently kept by the royal family in the land on the left. And there's a popular theory of why they called the area the Isle of London. With the dogs. See, the area today is heavily developed. So they've got Canary Wharf, we've got Park, we've got the docks in the middle. Years ago, this was a sticky, wet marsh. You might be familiar with the areas, and you might have heard of it before. There's the Stepney Marsh. This land was derelict for a long time. The problem with the land was the flood. The tide would go above the land, and it created this sticky, wet marsh. They wanted to develop the area, they stopped. They had to stop the flood. They built up these concrete walls. They developed the areas where they are. Stop the flood and develop the land. Now we're going to start to point out. We're going to start to point out Greenwich and start to come around this big thing. You can see like this part of the river. It's all just a part. There's nothing really to point out. Can get a little bit boring in this part of the Thames. So I can tell because the school group gets louder and louder as you get further down. So if you are with a school group, just try and do your best to keep a little bit quiet. I know that there's school groups inside, but I know the teachers on the back there. If you are the teachers, just try and keep the students quiet. It's the courtesy of other passengers. I know the group can understand that you can come to the school, you're the only one struggling. Now we're starting to come around now then. Still continuing around the island on the left-hand side. Hard to imagine the docks we've got the harbour. Across the docks, through the middle of the land, no ships are in there anymore. So there's no shipping that takes place at all in these areas today. And there is plans over the next 30 years to fill in this area to the left-hand side. They say they're going to create a mini Manhattan. Keep the riverside apartments up in the middle, glass buildings. These glass buildings, they say, continue to be built until they go all the way across. right to the edge of this massive bed, trying to create some electricity, a really massive Canary Wharf, big eye, the next 30 years. Keep the riverside apartments, because even this far out of London, they are worth millions of pounds. So you do pay millions to live along this. Next to Tower Bridge, you pay £10 million for a 2-bedroom apartment with a view of Tower Bridge. This far away, probably 1 or 2 billion for a 2-bedroom. You do pay a lot of money to live in here. The further you get away from Tower Bridge, the cheaper the apartment becomes. And the further you get away from this river, the cheaper the rent. I live miles away. I don't live anywhere near. I live about 200 miles away. Now we're starting to come round now. Now before we get to Greenwich, blocking the view of Greenwich at the moment, you've got a big ship. So you've got a big coast ship. Right where the ship is sitting, you're going to see the moment. Where that ship is one of the deepest parts of the Thames in these upriver sections. And they turn the deep water into a cruise terminal. So you get ships here, and the Viking fleet of ships, they stop here every week over the summer months. And it's what's called the Viking Jubilee. The ships come in on the high water, and they position themselves in between these yellow mooring buoys. You can see as we go by, and then they can go up and down with the tide about here at the top. The rise and fall of the river is 7 meters. On average, 7 meters water floods in and ebbs out. At the moment, the tide is leaving London, but only just. You're pretty much now on that low water. See, it's one of the foreshore on your left-hand side, and on your right-hand side. You come back in 5 hours from now, you'll be 7 meters higher than we are at the moment. And then the tide has been leaving London for 7 hours, and now the tide is starting to come back. So you've got the low tide. If you look at the top of the River Wharf, your green moss line is the average tide. The tide is continuously moving. Either ebbing out the sea or flooding back in. And the sea is about 30 miles in this direction. So we continue in this direction out of the sea. So very shortly the tide is going to turn and start to flow. You're going to see a close-up view of the cruise ship. So even on the low tide, there's about 10 meters of water beneath the ship. The tide is running. The ship will go up and down about 10 meters. They only stay here for a few days. They go somewhere a little bit more exotic. Somewhere where the weather's a little bit better, the people going up. I think the next port is Glasgow. Now looking in front of it, you've got the bridge down there. So you've got the large white buildings in front. These are the Royal and Naval Colleges, where they trained and learned for the Royal Navy. Beautiful buildings, designed by Sir Winston and Admiral in the Gold Coast. Next to those buildings, next to the pier, there is a maritime museum. You go in there completely free of charge. Completely free. And that's next to the pier. The ship is called the Cutty Sark. The ship with a 3-tall mast. Built in Scotland in Dumbarton in the 1800s, and now it's the fastest ship built in her day. Reaching speeds up to 25 knots. Very fast and very powerful ship. Built to bring tea to London. This was one of the tea carriers that would race from India to China and the tea. Saw out her days bringing wool from Australia further than the board here. British open to the public as a tourist. The furthest thing away from the pier is the Royal Observatory. The observatory is around a 20-minute walk. It's where the Meridian line passes through Greenwich. the point where east meets west, and it's also where they calculate GMT, Greenwich Mean Time, where the whole world sets their clocks. You go to the observatory, you'll be in two places at the same time, one for in the east, one for in the west, and you'll also be able to set your clock for GMT.